How to unfuck Britain's economy? Financial crisis has come to Britain once again. So, what exactly is the problem? And most importantly, is there a solution? It's quite simple really. Expenditure is too high and income is too low. Britain is living beyond its means, and it has been for some time. In recent months, the Institute of Directors, a lobby group for small and medium-sized businesses, called for income tax to be increased in order to solve this problem. It seems like a simple solution, doesn't it? Well, the Labour government has already tried increasing taxes this year, but things didn't exactly go to plan. According to the OBR report, overall government revenue has actually gone down, despite the tax rate going up. Here's the issue. If we look at the history of taxation going back to World War II, we see that it's very hard for tax revenues to get much higher than 38% of GDP. This is because when taxes go above 38%, the people of Britain modify their behaviour. They simply have less incentive to work hard, less incentive to save, less incentive to invest, and less incentive to spend. If people think it's pointless to earn over 100,000 a year because the marginal tax rates are too high, they deliberately do less work. The overall economy becomes less productive. So even if the government takes a bigger percentage of the pie through higher taxation, the pie itself becomes smaller. So taxation is somewhat capped at 38%. Expenditure, however, has got up to about 45% of GDP. This gap of 7% therefore needs to be filled. This can happen either through the sale of government assets like public land, infrastructure, state-owned enterprises like national airlines or resources, or by debt financing. But there's only so many government assets to sell, and Margaret Thatcher already sold off most of them, so the government is instead turning to debt. And that's put the country into an inflationary doom spiral that's making almost everyone poorer. What all this shows is that it's extremely difficult to increase taxes. Put it plainly, there's not much more to be squeezed out of the orange. But there is one option: land value tax. So much of the country's wealth is tied up in property, and it's made the cost of housing absolutely ludicrous. And the problem is, unlike something like a business, this asset class doesn't bring any wealth back into the economy. In fact, it's extracted from the economy. Huge swathes of people have become millionaires just because they inherited property, or because they happened to buy a property in the right place back in the 1970s. Now, property-owning landlords are effectively able to tax younger working people through charging extortionate rent prices. If you speak to young people today, it's not taxes that are stinging them, it's paying too much in rent. This is called rent seeking. Rent seeking is a term describing behaviour where individuals or groups try to gain income or advantages without creating new value or contributing to productivity. This is the current UK property market, and it's damaging our economy. The problem is, property isn't just any kind of asset class, it's an essential. People need houses to live in. We need to find a way to level out this housing market. A land value tax isn't exactly a wealth tax. A wealth tax might drive hard-earning people away to build their businesses elsewhere. A land value tax would instead target older generations who are sitting on large estates and no longer contributing meaningfully to the economy. We also need to look at reducing our country's expenditure. Next year, £326 billion is expected to be spent on welfare, and over £200 billion is expected to be spent on health and social security, £111 billion on paying back interest on debt, £94 billion on education, and £39 billion on defence. It does seem that if we're going to get out of this mess, we need a general tightening of expenditure. That could mean freezing welfare benefits. It could mean reducing the amount spent on UKRI, which is around £9 billion a year. It could mean trimming back the civil service, finding savings on the education budget, or the amount spent on green energy schemes, such as the £20 billion expected to be spent on carbon capture and storage. Now, carbon capture sounds like a good thing, but if no other countries around the world are capturing their carbon emissions, including the US, China, India and Russia, will it really make a difference? These are some of the difficult questions the UK government needs to face. Now, a lot of money has been thrown at the NHS in recent years, but without tangible results. This suggests it's not about spending money, it's about how the money is spent, wisely, competently and efficiently. So yes, that means that it all comes back to effective management. We need to do more with less. This other side of the approach needs to be about creating more revenue, not through increased taxation, but through increased productivity. Here are just some of the different ways we could do this, each one backed by historical examples. Number 1, the South Korean model. In 1997, South Korea was nearly bankrupt. Banks collapsing, currency crashing. But the country made a bold decision. Pick strategic industries and back them to the hilt. Electronics, semiconductors, advanced manufacturing. This resulted in the rise of Samsung, LG, and a transformation from crisis to a tech superpower in just a few years. Britain is already trying to do this, to an extent, through its investments in AI. Perhaps this is the time to double down and start laying the groundwork to become a manufacturing hub of the AI and robotics economy of the future. The decimation of Britain's manufacturing capacity has been suicidal. It's time to bring it back. Number 2, the Irish model. In the early 1990s, Ireland was struggling with high unemployment and emigration. The turnaround strategy? Become the world's most attractive place for global investment. Low corporate taxes, streamlined regulation, and a targeted pitch to tech companies around the world. The result? Google, Apple, Meta and Intel all set up major organisations in Ireland. And as a result, its GDP surged. The UK needs to become an attractive place for international companies to invest, and that could mean a radical cutting of taxes. Number 3, the Chinese model. In the 1980s, China's economy was poor and stagnant. The breakthrough idea? Special economic zones, places where investment rules were simpler, taxes lower, and innovation encouraged. Places like Shenzhen exploded from tiny towns into global manufacturing giants. The UK could create its own modern innovation zones. Imagine cities around the country with special lower tax rates for businesses. The UK has often been described as a wealthy city, London, attached to a poor country. Special innovation zones would have the added benefits of spreading the wealth around to parts of the country that have been underserved for many years. Imagine if taxes were radically cut for entrepreneurs and small businesses in Sunderland. Would we see it rise like a phoenix from the ashes and become a hub of innovation and economic growth? Number 4, the German model. Right now, the UK produces far fewer skilled technicians, engineers and tradespeople than countries like Germany. So companies struggle to find workers. Productivity stays low, and young people often end up in jobs that don't match their talents. Germany, on the other hand, operates a dual system, where teenagers split the time between classroom learning and real paid work inside companies. It's a big reason German manufacturing is still world class. If Britain built a similar system, properly funded apprenticeships, clear career pathways, and employers deeply involved in training, we'd have a workforce ready for advanced manufacturing, biotech, and the jobs of the future. It's one of the fastest, most proven ways to boost wages, productivity, and opportunity at the same time. So, there we have it. Some ideas on how we can cut expenditure, increase productivity, and implement a land value tax that could level out the playing field. But it's not going to be easy. Britain is in dire straits and will need some very talented leadership and some courageous policies if we're going to get out of this mess. Thanks for watching. See you next time.